Order. Ms. Byram, may I have roll call, please?
Yes. Miss Anderson?
Here.
Miss Dawson?
Here.
Miss Harrington? Mr. Rickett?
Here.
Madam Chair, the clerk certifies the presence of a quorum.
Is there any adjustments to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
May I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve?
I'll second.
All those in favor by saying aye? All right, moving on. Ms. Dawson, closed session. Motion, please.
It's on this tiny computer. Get it. Pursuant to 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, the Orange County School Board will convene a closed meeting for the following: discussion of personnel or the performance of a division employee as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia for resignation, termination, transfer, employment, salary adjustment, and retirement of employees. Also, discussion of pupil personnel as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A2 for early admission, waiver of compulsory attendance, out-of-county, out-of-district request, and student discipline.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
We're in closed session. May I have a closed session certification, please?
Whereas the Orange County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Orange County School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed, and only such business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Byron, may I have roll call, please?
Ms. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Dawson,
Aye.
Mr. Rickett.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the clerk certifies the vote as follows: 3 yes votes, no votes, with 1 member absent.
Thank you. Dr. Hornig, deposition of personnel actions.
Yes, ma'am, to approve the personnel actions as presented in closed session.
May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the recommended personnel actions as presented by the superintendent in closed session.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye? Deposition of pupil personnel actions, Dr. Hornig.
Yes, ma'am, recommend to approve the request for waiver of compulsory attendance, case numbers PP 2025-04 through 11, as presented in closed session.
May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the request for waiver of compulsory attendance for pupil personnel case numbers 2025-04 through 2025-11 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, and we will recess for 40 minutes.
Thank you.
Is that it? It was counting
Yeah, it
over.
doesn't beep. Then it beeps how far over we go.
I'd like to call this meeting back to order. May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Action items, Dr. Horner?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. We have one action item this evening, and this is coming from Locust Grove Middle School and Mr. Bullis, our band instructor. He is always ahead of the game, and he is planning a visit to the Kennedy Center and the National Art Galleries you can see in March. And he would like to take 43 students, and you can see the fundraiser costs, and I believe he would likely looking to get this approved so he can begin the process of squaring away everything that would be needed to complete this field trip.
Are there any questions? Someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the Locust Grove Middle School sixth grade band field trip to Washington, D.C. as presented.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next, on to a few recommendations. First, I'll bring Dr. Wolfrey forward. First is a supplemental appropriation for the tidings waiver for Title I. Do you have to take a minute to just explain this real quick?
Good evening. We're just asking for permission to do a supplemental appropriation. It's roughly $11,000 for Title I. The tidings waiver allows states to ask the federal government for permission to extend the deadline for dispersing those funds. So it was reallocated among divisions, and that was our portion. And that's those are funding. That's funding that we would have to encumber by the end of this month, and we would spend that by mid-November.
Okay. Is there any questions? Would we like to move forward on this one?
Hold on, let me find what exactly to call it. What do I call it, Laura?
Motion to approve the tidings waiver for Title I.
Motion to approve, tidings waiver for Title I, $11,427.84.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. Next, we are very happy to report that after a few years of not receiving this grant funding, the school division it was made known to us later on Friday that we did receive grant funding from the VDOE school security equipment grant. And to my knowledge, I believe we got the max amount of $250,000, $250,000. We would like to utilize these funds plus our local match to do two very important safety and security projects. One is to completely replace the public address system at Orange County High School. And the second will be to take our second building at this time. We've already done the high school, but take Locust Grove Middle School and upgrade that camera system. It is now our oldest of all the schools, and put it on a cloud-based system as opposed to a hard drive DVR service type camera system. And so Justin is here to talk a little bit more about these projects and the procurement process, and answer any additional questions that the board may have.
So we have had a number of, if you've been in the county very long, you will have probably heard at some point some criticisms about the PA system at Orange County High School. The criticisms are probably fair because the building has, of course, changed significantly over time to accommodate the growth of the county. Unfortunately, the PA system is not a standalone. It's a standalone system that basically, when you've added a wing to the building, or if you've added a building to the campus, we've essentially had to, in some cases, daisy chain speakers together to create the functionality of the PA system. quite frankly, there's some areas in the building that have substandard audio quality. We've worked through vendors, we've worked through our in-house solutions. At the end of the day, we need a new solution for that building. It's just time. And when this opportunity became available, when they created this as an avenue to use the school safety and security funding, we saw this as a wonderful opportunity to resolve this problem with little to no impact or minimal impact on the taxpayers of the county to bring this building to a modern level. We've actually had a couple of different vendors walk this building. The vendor that we would like to use is called Cloud 12. They use a technology that uses it's a current IP-based system. It ties in with all of the other systems that we use, the phones, that ties in with Centegix, which we're implementing now. In fact, they're a strategic partner with Centegix. So we're excited to see how we can leverage the Centegix system with this building. If things go well, it may be that we consider filing similar applications when opportunities become available to do other campuses, because our buildings, the newest building being Locust Grove Middle School with 2011, that's not a new building anymore. To that note, with the camera system, Locust Grove Middle School was the first building that had building-wide security cameras. It now has the oldest security camera system in the county, which is why the project qualified for the grant. There is a 25% match. We believe that we have some strategies to accommodate that within our operating budget and some cooperation with the county. The biggest challenge we need now is just to get everything scheduled. So what we would like to do, if possible, and we can provide you with more information. There's obviously some security concerns with making too much information public with everything. But if you have some questions that you'd like to know some specific answers or would like to review the contract, that's certainly something we can make available to you if Dr. Hornick hasn't already. I'm not sure if you shared that with the mayor or not.
I didn't have it. We'll get it.
Okay. We just need to go ahead and the vendor is excited to work with us. As far as procurement goes, they are available on a couple of different contracts. We're currently vetting which is the best option, but we have several options, and our quote was very competitive. We have had quotes from a couple of different vendors. The total cost for the project is expected to be $256,000. So it's not a small undertaking for this building.
So you said this company and I always butcher it. It's Centegix.
Centegix.
Centegix. They've worked together in the past.
That's correct.
Okay.
They're a strategic partner that they have, so their products integrate seamlessly.
Are you going to try to align the timing?
Well, Centegix is
You're
actually
grinning.
being
Uh-oh.
Centegix is actually being installed as we speak. They have a team at Orange Elementary today and at Gordon Barber today.
Okay.
So by the end of the week, the Centegix system will be fully operational from a standpoint of being installed. They've still got some things to do with the software side of it and some training, but we're approaching the end of that project, thank goodness, because we're anxious to get that in place as well. But they're currently tied in with our existing PA systems. So no, we don't have to have a new PA system to make Centegix work. It's going to make Centegix work better. Centegix has its own beacons and things, part of their hardware for their system that will solve some of the problems, but this new PA system would ensure that every area where students occupy will have an audio device, as well as the ability to adjust it and to ensure that public areas have proper audio when an announcement facility-wide needs to be made across it. And that also includes the track. It also includes the other buildings that are on the campus, including transportation and maintenance. So if there's an issue, we'll know about it at the transportation department and we'll be able to take appropriate action. That doesn't always happen depending on how the emergency is announced. So.
Yeah, my question was more about the alignment of it. To me, there's nothing worse than doing something like this than doing some work,
Yeah.
bringing in someone else, and then redoing something that just got done.
There-
But I'm sure you already considered that and already took that into consideration, so I appreciate that about you. I did have one further questions, which is just a little bit of a spinoff on Centedrix. Is when is that training? When are we scheduling the training for staff?
They're going to be training in phases. They'll start with training each school's response team first, which is going to be the building administration and those that would be involved in most building level emergencies, like a school nurse, counselors, all the administrators, and then other people that are listed on the list, such as school resource officers, school security officers. Once those individuals are trained, then we'll do the mass trainings for other staff. The training is pretty simple for the actual device for the user. It's a lot more intensive for the the administrator side of it, because there are multiple, when you press the button to declare a building level emergency, it gives you a lot of different options with how you can respond. Not every emergency needs to have the building go into a lockdown. It may be that you have a medical situation. Very quickly, the person who declares the emergency can log into the app and can provide details to guide the response, whether it be we need to put the building into a hold where we have people stay in their classrooms for privacy, say if we have a medical situation. If it's a situation where somebody's had where there's been a fight, it just helps us. The system will route the individuals more quickly to the person in need of help than even with the two-way radios. So,
Well, great, thank you, and as always, very much appreciate you going after this grant. First seeing it, going after it,
well,
getting it, and all that's going to do is just be a benefit to our young people here in the community. So thanks, as always.
the camera system for Locust Grove Middle School, it is a mirror system to what's currently at Orange County High School. And it just basically takes out of the equation a mechanical hard drive that's part of these systems currently and puts it on a cloud-based platform, makes it much more
You mean it doesn't run
reliable.
on a loop? I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
I have a question for
Absolutely.
you. So as far as with the new CTE building,
Mhm.
are we looking at this as being able to expand into that building? Or are we
Absolutely.
able to price that out now and get what we need and then just put it in the building when it comes?
They could certainly do it that way if we wanted to. There are going to be components of this system that will be installed in, say, the learning cottages that will only be 2 years old that could be removed and reinstalled in the new building. So there will be some savings and repurposing that can happen because the equipment will be new enough to do so.
Okay.
But it's very scalable. If we decide that we have an element of it that's not performing well, it's relatively easy to add because you're not having to string speaker wires across the building. It's very much a computer network. So if we needed to add, let's just say the plans change with, something format changes within one of the buildings, it's relatively easy to change that, assign the room numbers and make sure that you're getting accurate information to where it needs to go pretty easily. But even doing something division-wide, if you needed, the system has the capability of making a division-wide announcement if the system's installed in all facilities. So quite a bit of power with it compared to what we have currently.
And as far as the breakdown of what we're looking at cost-wise and how we get to that $256,000 number?
So the grant itself is $250,000, which has a 25% match, which is about $62,500. Both of these projects completed as they're completely written will exceed that by about another $60,000, if I'm correct, if I'm, ballpark.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on some final figures in both directions. We believe that we can accommodate some of that with local savings, reallocation of some funds, maybe particularly in their capital line, but we will be approaching the county and more than likely for some additional support with that. This is one of those opportunities where we have had, it's money that we will be able to invest in these buildings. Instead of asking for a replacement high school or replacement elementary schools, we do a lot to keep these buildings going and improve them. So when grant funding comes available, we look for every opportunity to take full advantage of that. So that's why the grant was written kind of aggressively to try to take on both of these important projects.
And as far as like breakdown is really what I was asking, between the two. I mean, obviously, they are two different systems.
Correct.
And
256 for the PA system, about 117 for the camera system.
okay, so we needed the additional so $100 and some, $100 and some thousand.
Yeah, about
in addition
120,000.
Is what we would be going to the county for. Are there any other questions?
Do you need us to do anything?
That's totally up to you, Justin.
In an ideal world, I'd like to get this moving. At least, if we had to prioritize right now, I'd like to go ahead and see if we can move forward with the PA system, largely because they need to send an engineer out to do a walkthrough of the building to help finalize the pricing. But based off of the systems that I've reviewed personally and that others have reviewed, and feedback from this is the system that I would like to see us implement in our county. And with this funding source, we have this opportunity. So I would really like to move forward if possible.
I have no problem moving forward with it. I would just like a little bit more detail, especially as far as breakdowns of numbers.
Move to approve the VDOE school safety grant as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. Justin, thank you.
Get that thing up and running, brother.
Absolutely. Next, this evening, we have a few reports that we're happy to bring forward. We'll start with Dr. Wolfried Honecker to come forward to go over our recent Patriot Day and Constitution Day events. In a short presentation, I believe it's inclusive of a video.
Yes.
So Renee, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening.
On video?
Yeah, you get to see a fun video. To honor Patriot Day and Constitution Day, students and staff at all of our schools participated in various educational and commemorative activities. Patriot Day activities ranged from wearing red, white, and blue to commemorate the day, school broadcast, flag raising ceremonies, guest speakers, and a large ceremony led by the JROTC at the high school honoring Orange County's first responders. Constitution Day included discussions and lessons about the U.S. Constitution at all grade levels, such as a scavenger hunt with students researching which parts of the Constitution apply to current laws, readers' theater, class discussions, and writing activities. So we thought that you'd like to see some of these events. So Laura, hit it. No, just kidding. I think it's buffering or something. This happens in the classroom to teachers
I
all the
always call it
time.
the spinning wheel of
Mhm,
death.
Yes, yes.
It's pausing so we can read what he wrote.
Right. Mrs. Anderson and I were at Lightfoot last week, wasn't it the day, it was Thursday, so it was the day after, and they had their constitutions that they had signed up on the wall. It
Yeah,
was
it was
awesome.
really cute.
Yeah.
All right, let's try this one more time.
See if I can refresh it.
It's short. So. Woo. All right. Hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you.
And thanks to Ellen Patera for putting that together.
Ms. Patera worked on that?
Was that shared on our social media, the video?
Different things shared, but not that video, but we could certainly
I think that'd be awesome. I think many in our community would really appreciate seeing that. Makes my heart happy. Thank you.
Terrific job.
Thank you very much, Renee. Judy, next, will give a brief update on our strategic plan targets, please.
Yes, this evening, we just wanted to provide a brief update on some work that we've been doing. Our administrative team is working very hard as the plan has evolved to make sure that our targets and goals are remaining relevant and also measurable. So we've taken a close look at the initial targets, and then based on our current needs and the progress that we've made in those areas, we've made some key revisions. So tonight, leaders are here to review the targets that are remaining the same and then provide updates on those that we've revised. So just a few changes in the folks that you've typically seen. Tonight, Renee will be doing, in addition to instructional programming, she'll also be talking with you about stakeholder engagement. Mr. Sedano tonight is involved at an activity at the high school. And Brandon, who's been working with Jessica Sarver, is going to take the lead tonight on technology for us. He's been working closely with us in that area. So I'll turn it over to Renee to start with our updates in her area.
There we go. So just to review, our instructional programming objectives and goals are: upon completion of elementary, middle, and high, all students will meet state and federal benchmarks in literacy, math, and science. And then upon completion of high school, all students will have an established college and/or career plan. So Laura, if you go to the next slide, this is just an update on our benchmarks for our targets for 2026. We are using the federal benchmarks because they're what we need to meet, and we felt like that was the best way to do that. Now, the federal benchmarks do not apply to history, or science. So we are going to mirror these and have English and history and math and science grouped together. And we're going to try to meet those benchmarks for all of those areas. As far as the college and career plan goes, I don't have a slide for this, but I will just tell you that Nora Brooking has been working closely with counselors in middle school and high school to make sure that there's a progression for our college and career plans, starting in middle school. And then once they get to the high school, they're going to be using their OC block. And teachers within the OC block will have a schedule of what days and what assignments should be done by students in those days. And they have given one counselor the job of being the lead counselor for these, so someone to make sure that everything is being implemented. And that's Mr. Feathers at the high school. He's going to be the counselor point of contact for the plan, so that there's some checks and balances there to make sure that every student is benefiting from those plans. And next we have Susan.
Okay. Good evening. So under safe learning environment, we actually kept our targets the same for safe learning environment or objectives. So the first being reducing our chronic absenteeism rate to less than 10%. And in a minute, we'll show you on the next slide where we are with that. But also leaving the target of reducing student behaviors that endanger safety and welfare by 15% each year. And following this presentation, I have one on the SBAR report, which is student discipline. And so I will walk you through several of the information there. But on the next slide, it does show our chronic absenteeism rates comparative from 2022 to last year. And this is something that is monitored at a minimum on a monthly basis. So it is something that principals see very frequently and is something that's at the forefront of everything they do. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, so for stakeholder engagement and support, we have by June 2026, OCPS will increase the number of formal internships, mentorships, job shadowing, and apprenticeships by 25%. And then by June 2027, there was some discussion about how our schools could improve their community engagement, and to do that we felt like they needed more formalized plans. So by June of this year, school year, each school will have their own community engagement plan, just to make sure that it's a focus area in that school. And the next slide is just a reminder of our internships and work-based learning and how much we grew. So I think originally we were saying, what was it, like 10% or something each year? And we figured since we did such a great job improving by so many last year, we needed to up that to 25%. So we're well on our way this year to meet that goal. So that's great.
Good evening. So under recruitment and retention, our targets remain the same as we are analyzing those over an extended period of time. So the first being OCPS will increase the percentage of properly licensed and endorsed teacher staff by 15% annually until 90% is attained. And then OCPS will increase and maintain a staff retention rate of 90% annually. And finally, by June 2028, OCPS will increase staff salaries to be at or above the median salary of surrounding school divisions. The next slide is just a reminder of where we were last year with our properly licensed staff. I am happy to report we are making gains in this area. We have over 25 of our staff members enrolled in the iTeach program, which is the alternative route to licensure. And it's successful because I have a great licensure specialist in my department who monitors this and pushes this. But we are seeing people completing the program, which is amazing. So I anticipate this is going to look really good this year. And then the next slide is just where we are with the retention rate. Of course, for 25-26, we don't have those numbers yet, but I'm hoping that we will be above the 82.02% that we were in 24-25. And then finally, our teacher salary comparison. We will start pulling this information within the next month so that we know how much gains we made. I know we made some gains. I can feel it. So we'll start pulling that information, and the board will see that as we do our budget development.
For our technology and digital citizenship portion, we have updated our targets. So by June 2026, we want to have all of our teachers complete professional development for effective and ethical integration of generative AI into classroom practice. We're all aware of the continued information coming from our partners at the state level, and we want to stay on top of it and make sure our teachers are prepared and ready as it starts to get added into curriculum. And that leads into our second target during the 2025-2026 school year. The revised computer science standards will be integrated into the K-12 curriculum. So we'll see some of those updates. Those were released in June, so right after we completed our curriculum work, because we try to stay ahead of the ball and get that done right after school lets out. And some of those changes include AI and some of those topics. So we want to make sure our teachers are ready and can handle that as they come. And our second slide is a link to our guidelines that we're certainly going to stick to as we start that PD process, which will be starting soon. We're going to work on that in our upcoming PD days through the end of the year.
So I want to say thank you to all the team leaders for their very focused work and working with the principals to make these adjustments, and to Dr. Hornick for keeping the strategic plan at the forefront of all the decisions that we make and the work and the focus for the year. We have some next steps to help us move forward and realize these goals and targets. So first of all, we'll be looking at each of the action team plans in those areas to make sure that they're aligned with the new targets and can help us get there. Aligning and monitoring our school improvement plans at each of the buildings. We've already begun that work. We've been meeting with principals on their improvement plans for the year. They do align very nicely with all of those targets that we just listed. And then developing a dashboard that will allow the community to see our progress when they go to our site for the strategic plan is one of our priorities. And of course, continuing to report our progress in all of these areas. We're confident that these steps will help us better monitor and reach those goals that we've set out that align with the beliefs that we have on the next slide that guide our strategic plan work. And these were developed by a collective group of members from our community. So we certainly can see that in going back and cross-referencing those, we are definitely adhering to the beliefs of our broader community. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judy. Thank you, Yvonne, Brandon, Susan, Renee as well. And next tied in, as Susan mentioned in her part of the presentation, we have our report out on SBAR, which is an acronym for Student Behaviors and Administrative Response. Susan?
Okay. All right, so this is the SBAR report. I'm just going over, it's basically what was formerly called the Discipline, Crime, and Violence Report. And basically, under the Code of Virginia, we are required to provide and report this information. It satisfies federal assurances for under ESSA, the Gun-Free Schools Act, and IDEA, and it did replace the Discipline, Crime, and Violence, which a lot of people have heard of that report. And all public schools in Virginia, the private schools for special education, so our students who go to those schools, and public regional centers have to report the SBAR data. So when we get referrals from those centers and schools, we have to then enter it into our system to report it. The events that are reported under SBAR are any discipline event that happens during our school day, during a school-sponsored activity. Sometimes things that don't happen during school, but if they cause a disruption within the school environment that we have to address, that's reported. And then anything in transit on the way to school or on the way home from school. When things are reported into PowerSchool in our incident management system, not only is whatever the incident is that's recorded, but also then the administrative response has to be put in. We have a lot of different codes that have to be aligned with whatever the incident was. But then we have to look at what are the behavior interventions and instructional supports that we need to, that take place in order to address the situation, but also to prevent it from happening again. And I've put just a couple examples. There's actually quite a list of behavior interventions and instructional supports. So that it's not only just a sanction that goes with a possible incident. Not every incident has a sanction, but that there are other things that we do, such as parent contact, administrative conferences, putting together a positive behavior support plan, referral to outside agencies, and other restorative practices through our administration and counseling center, just to name a few. And then under school level sanctions, those are things just what you would typically think of: a class removal, possibly in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, and then other sanctions that maybe it's lunch detention or after-school detention or something like that as well. So the data, so the next two slides will look at what is the data comparison between the 23-24 school year and last school year. So I've broken it down by elementary, and then on the next slide is secondary. So under elementary, I've listed the number of incidents that happen, and these include all the incidents. So this would be bus referrals, it would be anything that happens during the day, school activities, those type of things. So I've listed the number of incidents for each school year, whether there was an increase in the number of incidents or a decrease, and then what were the areas of change? Where did we see because we get a very, very, very detailed breakdown of each incident by incident code, how many from one year to the next. And so this helps us to see what are the things that we need to focus on. And so, for example, at Locust Grove Elementary School, there was an increase in the number of incidents from 23 to 24, and they were primarily with refusal to comply with staff requests. And it might have been different types of staff requests, but that was the basic gist of the increase. Lightfoot Elementary, for example, really had no change. They had one more incident in the 24 school year that they had in 23. Same for Unionville. They actually had a decrease. Their number of incidents went down. Gordon Barber also had a decrease, and in looking at the decrease at Gordon Barber, it was a significant number. So I looked at what were the incidents that went down, and they were classroom interfering behaviors, threatening behaviors, and failure to respond to requests. Those types of incidents, there were fewer of those at Gordon Barber last year. And then at Orange Elementary, they also had a small decrease, and theirs were primarily in the area of negative relationship behaviors. So the elementary, the changes were minor as far as increases, and then the decreases were notable as well. So for secondary school, at the secondary level, there are a larger number of incidents. They are larger schools too. But Locust Grove Middle School did see an increase in the number of incidents in their building, and theirs were primarily the failure to respond to staff requests and speaking to others in an uncivil manner. Those were two of the behavior discipline codes that really stood out as far as the number of increase. At Prospect Heights, it was a slight increase in their building, and theirs were primarily the refusal to comply with staff requests and engaging in reckless behavior. And that could have been like horseplay or making a poor decision, that type of thing. At Orange County High School, there was, you'll notice on the screen, it looks like a drastic increase, and that's why the asterisks are there. So in looking at the data from the 23-24 school year to 24-25, there were a couple things that came into play. One, in 23-24, the state actually changed how we report the incidents. So they went from one part of Power School where we had for years logged, here are the incidents, here's how we code it. They changed it to what they call incident management. So it's still in Power School, but it was a whole different place and a little bit different way of putting that information in. So there was a change at the beginning of the school year to how everybody had to record the incidents. And of course, at the high school, there's quite a few more incidents. And so they also switched to using another program to have teachers make referrals. And so it wasn't until pulling this report, and that's my responsibility, was looking at why was there such a discrepancy. So I don't believe the incidents at the high school in 23-24 actually captured everything, because there were, at all the schools, we actually had to go back and enter in a lot of incidents because of the change in how we reported them. And at the high school, I think there were some that were just missed. However, the total number of incidents of the large increase that is there, over 1,000 of those incidents are related to cell phones and having a cell phone, because remember, it's not always a sanction. So, but just having the cell phone and having that, turning it in, having a parent come pick it up. But also then along with that are those who refuse to comply with what's been requested. And so over 1,000 of those, of the increase is related to cell phone usage. But there were also an increase in students not going to class, profanity, tardiness, and scholastic dishonesty. Those
Susan,
were the
quick
ones.
question about cell phones. So cell phones, what would you say, so 1,000, I can't even believe it, but, so 1,000 incidents of misuse of cell phone. So what is the process to go through to get this data to where it is right now? So a teacher or someone's got to write them up, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, then walk me through the different steps.
So at each school, they have the same process, but it might look a little different developmentally. But generically,
Yep.
The teacher would ask the student to turn the cell phone off and put it away. If it's a repeated offense, they may ask to confiscate the cell phone and turn it into the front office, or some buildings have them in the teacher's desk till the end of that class period, and then they take it down to the office. But a lot of times what goes with that is also then the failure to comply with what the directions or what they've been requested to do.
Would that be considered just one incident, or would that be considered two because cell phone and non-compliance?
It's both codes are entered in.
So it would be counted as two?
Mm-hmm. Both
Keep going,
codes
I'm
get
sorry.
entered in.
Yep.
So, and then it just would go from there. So if you're a repeat offender, they may come up with some type of a contract indicating. They might have something where a student in an extreme case has to maybe be subject to backpack searches where they have to turn it in every day when they come in, or the parents agree that they'll search a backpack to make sure that they don't bring them to school.
So then it goes to the office at the high school. How does it get to you? Or does the school input the information into?
Each school inputs all the information. I
Does it
don't
come up
actually,
here?
no, I
It
don't
doesn't come up
input.
here at all?
No, I
Okay.
don't input any of this information.
What, you know what's coming. Tell me an idea of what type of time loss are we looking at from an education standpoint by dealing with some of this? And I am picking on cell phones, and only for an example only.
And I would say, early on, certainly last year was really one of the, the focus statewide of not having your cell phone on at school and not using your cell phone. So I think at the beginning of the year, it took a lot of time. There was a lot of incidents. But as the year went on, that decreased by a large number because that became the norm. This is the expectation. They're going to enforce what the rule is. And so now we're going to have fewer incidents of that happen.
So for me, in looking at some of the numbers, I'm kind of torn both sides. The first initial glance, you go, wow, those are some big numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, all right, well, maybe there's just minor infractions. Okay.
Right.
But then when you have a minor infraction, well, we're paying someone to write up a young person on a minor issue. Okay, so.
But so the number of incidents are actually the number of things that happen. There is different data that we have that delineates the number of sanctions. So if we were to pull out the number of sanctions, it's a whole lot less than 3,000 at the high school. But if we were to look at how many were we doing the behavior and instructional interventions, that number is huge because there's so many other things that we would want to do before we have a sanction, unless it's one of the incidents that just comes with it automatically.
Because you're solution oriented at all times. That's why I love you to death. So I put myself in the assistant principal role at whatever school that you want. Wow, that's a lot of work.
It is, yes.
That's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
So that means I'm taking away from development of my teachers, from teaching, curriculum, having conversations with a number of people. All right, I will probably stop there. One last question. Do you see this number in all of the schools going in a positive direction?
I would say, in my estimation,
that's what matters to
I would
me.
say, well, certainly elementary is going in a positive direction.
Okay, good.
High school and middle school, I would say the type of infraction, yes, there are some that are going in a positive direction, but we are also at times a reflection of society. So there are things that are increasing. For example, the cell phone. We saw an increase because that is something that, our society is struggling with too when we talk about screen time for individuals. So, but across the board, our administrators work really hard and our school counselors to really work with students so that discipline isn't about the sanction. Discipline is about a learning experience. Mm-hmm. This is a learning opportunity and a moment to now, how can we, work with you as an individual to change the behavior or whatever the situation might have been. So the number, when you look at the number of incidents, maybe it's not going in a positive direction. I feel like, though, the number of interventions that our staff use and how they approach discipline is going in a positive direction.
I don't want you to
because it's
answer-
about the relationship.
Right. I don't want you to answer this question.
Okay.
But I'm just going to, I've sat back and think, so how many first offenders do you have versus multiple offenders? Okay. I have a pretty good feeling of what the answer is. I don't want you to answer the question. So thank you for the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, did I understand you to say that the areas of change section, you went through the data and pulled out this particular terminology for it?
Yes.
So when it actually gets reported on the state report, do they have strict terminology for each separate thing that you plug it into?
There are particular codes that we have to use when we report it to the state, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to share those codes if you want to see them.
I was just
Yeah.
curious. That seems very broad, and I was just wondering if they're more specific, because those state reports end up on the VDOE website, and everybody looks at them and says, "Ah." So I was just curious. Is it? I can look it up myself, but is it clear on the state report what the code means, or is it just a code?
On the state report itself, it primarily is just the code, but one of the supporting documents with it, and I actually have them. I'll just email them to you.
Okay, I'm just curious.
It's lists of different codes that we have to use when we report.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Yeah, I would like to see that. Thank you.
sure. And then the last slide actually talks about persistently dangerous and unsafe schools, and this is something that we definitely have to report on. This is just a one-page report where they break down certain offenses into categories 1, 2, and 3. And these are very specific codes that fall under these categories. And a school can be found as persistently dangerous and unsafe. It's based on the number of incidents that you have in each category, And based on like category 1, if you have any in category 1, you can be labeled a persistently dangerous and unsafe school. In categories 2 and 3, it's based on the number of incidents per 100 students. And so based on this, then it comes into play for parents. One, for the school to determine if we are labeled persistently dangerous and unsafe. While we now have to do a corrective action plan, we really have to delve into our data and come up with a plan of how do we remedy this. But then parents also have some options as far as having their children, if this falls in your district, they could ask to attend a different school that's not identified as persistently dangerous and unsafe. So for us in Orange County, last year we had 1 point in category 3 at Locust Grove Middle School that was related to the possession and distribution of a controlled substance, and there was 1 point. And none of the other schools had any. And then this, for 24-25, there was 1 point for the incident at Orange Elementary, and that was in category 3 for the gun that was found at school. So we don't fall into any of the persistently dangerous and unsafe schools, but it is one of the things that we do have to report. And these are the most serious offenses that you would find. For example, category 1 homicide. I mean, these are very serious offenses that we would.
One other curiosity question, going back to the interventions, in a classroom situation, if a teacher is just working on, with a child to create some sort of intervention for behavior, does all of that have to be reported? I mean, I would think that would be way too much of a load for a teacher who's just in the regular, everyday interaction with a child, creating some kind of interventions. Do you understand my question? I don't feel like I'm saying it very
You
well.
wouldn't
It's like,
have to
do they
go
have to
into-
record every single time they say,
Right.
put your phone away?
Only if they've written a referral.
Okay.
So only if there's an actual referral to document that incident,
Okay.
would they then have to enter, did we do a instructional intervention or a behavioral intervention?
So what we might call just the mundane, regular, being a teacher,
Right.
they don't have to document each one of those things. Thank
No.
God. Oh, my gosh. Okay.
And there are, what I'll send to you too, there are lists of what are the behavior interventions, what are the instructional interventions, and I'll send those as well, because they're readily available on the VDOE website. But
I'm also very curious about how do we define restorative practice? That term is a kind of a buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to know. You don't have to answer it now, but maybe we
Okay.
can have a conversation one day.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely, happy to.
What
Any
was
other?
your question one more time?
The restorative practices
Restorative
kind of
practice.
thing.
I
I mean,
didn't hear
you
that.
hear things about, you get in a circle and kumbaya and everybody gets a lollipop, and, what does that mean? Is that what we're doing?
And there are official programs of restorative justice, and then there are just interventions and things that you can do that could be identified as restorative as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
We're good.
That's the last slide is questions. Any other questions?
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. If you have any other questions,
slide.
that's okay. Anything else, just let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Thank you, Dr. Hornig. Moving on, board member comments or future items. Is there anything we need to add to our spreadsheet or any additional comments?
Do you have your notebook out?
I do have my notebook out, but I'm just wondering if
Do you want to go first? Or do you go first?
you can go first, because I'm still
Um,
pondering.
Can the J-Man come up to the podium for a second?
Justin, you've been
J-Man.
summoned.
So we talked about this last year, and you and I have had a couple of conversations, but it seems like you have continued to do what I always give you compliments for, is keeping your eyes open of opportunities. So I understand we may have an opportunity to dip our toe into these electric things.
So, to be perfectly transparent, the situation kind of found me this time. As it's customary, our salesman from Sunny Merriman pops in periodically just to check in on us, and of course we have a pending order with them. He made available an opportunity for us to purchase some electric buses, if we choose to, with very little risk. The vehicles are pre-owned. They have between 8,000 and 10,000 miles on them. I don't know all of the details. I know they were sold to a Virginia school division. I know that the individual vehicles weren't quite the issue. I don't know if it was a matter of the geographic area, if they bit off a bit more than they could chew. As far as, you know, when you take on an EV project, you've got to make sure that all of the logistics really work with them. I will say that I probably have been a little skeptical of the technology, especially with the approach of, you know, saying that this technology is going to solve all of our problems. We're in rural central Virginia. Clearly, it's not a solution to all of our problems. But I will tell you that the practical side of me looks at what's coming in the future, and looking at this technology as an alternative to our diesel power plants. I do see electric school buses as having a place, mostly because the routes are predictable. We know how many miles a day approximately that school bus is going to travel. We know where it's going to be parked at night to charge. Of all of the platforms, the school bus makes a lot of sense. The biggest challenge for me is the entry. You know, at $400,000, a new electric school bus is quite a bit of a bite to chew, especially when you compare it to a diesel bus that costs $160,000. So when the opportunity comes available to try one at a price that starts below what we're currently going to be paying for a diesel bus, and then you get a tax credit on top of it, it becomes a pretty interesting idea to at least pilot the technology. That's not to say that I'm going to come to you next year and say, these things are working great, I want to buy 7 of these monsters at $400,000. That's not practical or sustainable. But I think that it's fair to consider giving the technology a try from the standpoint that we have to consider something, because we do have something coming at us in a couple of years. If you follow the automotive industry at all, in 2027, we have the next round of EPA emissions law changes that will directly impact diesel-powered vehicles. We have been told by the dealer, when I say dealer, Thomas Built Buses, the manufacturer who uses Cummins as their primary engine manufacturer, that we should expect the next generation of diesel engine to have a $25,000 price increase per unit. And that's an estimate. They haven't released them to the market. Pricing's not finalized yet. We have also been told that the expectation will be that we will have some of the same heartache that we had when the revised emission standards started rolling out in 2007. When I tell you heartache, the buses will have a lot more engine sensors. The computer will optimize the engine to run as clean as humanly possible. They will have additional filters. I don't know all the ins and outs of the technology, but I do know that when we experienced the change initially, we had a lot of downtime. Most people think diesel engine, you can run them for hundreds of thousands of miles, minimal problems, very reliable. When we here in Orange County started having issues with our buses, we were seeing engine failures before 100,000 miles. So thinking about going through this all over again is a pretty big thing to try to swallow. Now, what are the options? Of course, there's an electric option. There's also, Cummins is actually a company that has produced diesel engines for decades, is producing a gasoline variant of their 6-cylinder engine, which will be released to the market at the same time. So they've also been prepared that that's going to be about a $10,000 increase. And of course, these are unofficial prices, but somewhere in the $10,000 price increase that we would have to consider. They also will be releasing compressed natural gas versions, propane versions, and then ultimately the technology will probably lead to a hydrogen fuel cell model, which, you know, we're talking about things that are coming down the road. But more immediately, we will have to make some decisions about whether or not we consider gasoline or propane. School buses, you start talking about what are the biggest threats to us. Fire always comes to mind. One of the reasons why I haven't been overly enthusiastic about trying gasoline or propane is because those vehicles have large amounts of a more volatile fuel than diesel. So you have to weigh every option. Gasoline and propane also have some other issues as far as efficiency. When there's a tax credit involved, it makes them a lot less expensive to operate than diesel. The tax credit goes away. You start dealing with something that's getting 3 and 4 miles per gallon. It starts to not make a lot of sense.
Justin, I've heard a lot about fire with the EV batteries and the expense of an EV battery.
Yeah. So I asked our dealer to give me a statement regarding fires with this particular vehicle. He says that they have not had a high voltage battery fire with this model, which I wanted to fact check a little bit. And when I started doing a little research, it does look like there were 4 that were destroyed in a fire in Massachusetts in January, and it was attributed to the charging station that they were plugged into.
And that's the other question, charging stations.
Yeah. The total price proposal will include 2 charging stations that will be installed at Locust Grove Middle School, and they're about $12,500 apiece. Even with the charging, by the time the tax credit comes in for the purchase, it'll still be a few thousand less expensive than the diesel buses that we currently have on order. Battery replacement, they have an 8-year warranty. They're about $35,000 to replace. Give you a comparison, a Cummins replacement engine's about $27,000. The difference between a gas or the computer on the bus will also let you see the battery, how the battery's health is. Like on your cell phone, if you can check, if you start noticing your charging efficiency starts to go down, it'll give you a similar type of report. So we'll have some advanced warning to know when the vehicle's struggling. Basically, it'll give us some information about end of life. Again, not here to try to ram the technology down anybody's throat. I just thought it was an interesting opportunity for us to give this a try with very minimal risk. Am I convinced that we will come out of this thinking that this is the right way to go? I couldn't tell you that, honestly. I don't think so because of the way that the county is, but I think that there's some areas in our county that will be well served by this. We've done some price analysis, taking other elements, just comparing gallon of diesel fuel to kilowatts. There is some savings to be had, and there's even possibly more savings to be had if we fully take advantage of our solar installations for the, where we put this charging sites. It'll be interesting information to have. There's going to be a few years, I think, where we will have to consider the different options before we settle into a direction. We'll obviously have to purchase a few of the new diesel buses. We may choose to purchase a gasoline-powered bus, and it's going to be a matter of weighing the pros and cons of the opportunity and not making a full investment into any one thing until we see which direction we're going. We did a similar thing when we started transitioning from international buses to Thomas buses around 2014. Because we were having a bad experience with international, we started buying a few Thomases. Even though they were a bit more expensive on the front end, we have seen over time a significant savings. Now, the important part to understand about these electric buses is aside from the power plants, they're mechanically identical to as far as the things that make it a school bus, they're identical to what the drivers are currently driving. So aside from the EV control side of it, they're going to feel very familiar in it. All the light controls are the same. All of the main systems are operated off of an electric motor instead. The power steering is electric. The air conditioning is fully electric. Even it still has air brakes like the regular school bus chassis, but that run off of an electric compressor instead. So they're very interesting. I have driven one. They're pretty normal the way they feel until you touch the accelerator, and they're a lot more powerful off the line than a diesel school bus.
A little snappy.
A little snappy. Again, it's an opportunity. The challenge we have with the opportunity is that courtesy of new legislation, the tax credit becomes unavailable after September 30th. So we're in a position where if we want to exchange them for 2 of the diesels that we have on order, I need to let them know pretty quickly so they can get paperwork processed, so we can take advantage of that.
So these 2 EVs would replace 2 of the diesels that we have
That is correct.
already.
That is correct. And for the immediate planning, we would probably put 1 of them at least in Lake of the Woods and possibly the other one in Wilderness Shores. We'd want to center them out of the Locust Grove Middle School because that's more than likely where we'll put the charging station, since that's our building with the most solar array.
Well, I'm excited about it, and I think it's just one of those things, like you, I'm very skeptical. I guess I've just gotten
Well-
older, but when change is scary. That being said, this is definitely technology that you have to kind of, I call it put your butt in the seat. It's not one of the ones that you can just read about and then go, yeah, I'm going to spend $400,000 on something that, oh, let me keep my fingers crossed, it may work.
So I do want to address what Ms. Dawson referenced earlier and what Ms. Anderson has also expressed some concerns about regarding fire, because we've all seen the dramatic pictures of a burning school bus on the internet. There's another bus company that has gained a lot of notoriety for producing an electric bus and has had several fires. This company's called Lion. They are now bankrupt and defunct. There are a lot of school divisions in Canada specifically that no longer have warranty coverage, a whole lot of major issues. Thomas Built Bus's parent company is Daimler Trucks, Mercedes-Benz. They've spent a lot of time and energy and money to ensure that that the battery system in these buses is up to their standards for reliability and safety. And it's a very robust company with a lot of history and a lot of financial success. So from a standpoint of, do I think that the manufacturer is going to stand behind it if there's a problem? Absolutely. And I also can tell you that Sonny Merriman is one of the premier Thomas dealers in the country. A lot of their leadership, their current CEO is, they're coming straight from the Thomas, Thomas plant, their leadership. They're coming to this dealership because of the reputation that it has. So I feel well supported. I don't feel like they would make a recommendation just to sell a bus. He does typically make me aware of things. We've been a customer for a good little while at this point. But I happily I could call him right now, and he would be happy to, if you have additional questions, would be happy to field those as well. But
So he reached out to you with these 2 buses that
They
another
actually-
division.
they've been made available to other divisions as well, but yeah, they actually came on site. It's more of just a customer check-in.
You're a little skeptical. I'm a lot skeptical. Truthfully, I just,
Yeah.
I just am. And I don't like that. I mean, I understand it's not your fault. I'm just saying the fact that you're saying, well, this opportunity appeared, but we have to decide essentially tonight, right? If September 30th is our drop dead day, that's
May I-
only
may
8
I-
days away.
May I say something?
I'm sorry.
That's
I didn't-
okay. Mr. Rickett, I did ask for comments. I didn't, if you wanted to have Mr. Starver present something, you could have changed the agenda at the beginning. I appreciate you coming forward. I know Ms. Harrington had some questions that she had wanted also, so I don't know if she's listening tonight or not, but I would hope that she would be able to chime in on this as well. The one thing that I did have for you was, you said 35,000. Is that for all 6 to 10 batteries, or is that per battery?
That's the battery pack.
Battery pack.
Yeah, it's an entire unit.
You sent those totals in an email, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Darlene, so you're skeptical from what standpoint?
The fact that it's Orange County, Just all of the parts and pieces that we just talked about, the charging stations, the batteries, the fire potential, although that seems like maybe in this
I'm more
particular
worried
case,
about,
it's not.
yeah, I'm more worried about fire with you know, more volatile, well, not with diesel, but more volatile fuels like gasoline.
Gas and,
To the point that the manufacturers are more worried about it too, because they actually, you know, the state, when they spec these buses, a gasoline and a propane and compressed natural gas bus all have to have fire suppression systems on board. Diesel and electric do not.
and I was thinking in terms of how far is this, can we get the mileage out of it that we need to get out of it on a charge? But if you're talking about, all right, we're gonna keep it in the Lake of the Woods, you know, more contained kind of, and we know how many miles a bus will go, as you said.
We know that we could use
a
them
route
in,
is.
in that method, but one of the things about having possession of it for longer than a demonstration, you know, the dealers will make vehicles available to us periodically to do a demonstration. I have an offer pretty much every fall from another company to demonstrate a propane-powered bus, and they actually would tag it, put Orange County on the side of it. As long as we could add it to our insurance, would let us run it on a route to try it. By having possession of one for a significant, meaningful amount of time, it will allow us to test it in different scenarios, to be able to say, okay, we know that this works for the closer communities, but we've now taken it and we've put it on routes that have, you know, varying terrain, but we're seeing success with that. You know, we may learn something, we may learn that it is more flexible than we think it is. It may prove to us that it is not something that we want to make further investments in. You know, it's just
But I
like,
think that's the part, and I guess that's my question as far as, Darlene, as far as your skepticism. So for us to set up here and say, you know what, let's buy one at $400,000, I'm going to be like
I
you.
understand we're getting a big savings to try this thing out. Right.
It's inevitable, isn't it?
I don't know, is it?
If the EPA is, I don't think any of the three of us believe that the EPA is going to go backwards in standards. If the diesel engine is going to have this type of price increase, alternative fuel will become, it's inevitable. So would we not rather not be in the driver's seat from the standpoint of no additional cost? Basically, we're going to come out, I don't think Justin used the word no risk, but risk averse maybe.
yeah, it's significantly less risk.
Right. And we can then say, you know what, we tried it. Okay, it worked for us. Or we say we tried, it didn't work for us. And then, you know, we move towards, you know, I love the word pilot, you know, piloting something different. You know, we're a large county. We are a large county. We're never going to be able to give up a diesel engine.
Right.
And to go from 160 to closer to $200,000 per bus, you
For
know.
this sale,
I'm sorry?
for this sale only.
Right, beyond.
Beyond this,
Beyond
it's
this, we're talking about
$400,000.
very expensive
No, I'm talking about a diesel. So a diesel right now is about 160.
166, 364.
Sure, and it's going to go up to almost 200 over the next 2 to 3 years.
Correct.
Okay, so the free
Still
market
less.
will determine that alternative fuels will come into play, because that just like everything else within the free market, there will be a course correction in some way.
The most telling thing to me is that Cummins, which is historically a diesel manufacturer, is producing a platform that they call this platform the fuel agnostic platform. Because they see the writing on the wall that they need to have some options for their customers. For them to release a gasoline engine boggles my mind. It's being designed to compete with diesel.
Yeah. I think most people in the automotive industry, if you had ever told them in the past that Cummins would make a gasoline engine, they'd look at you like you were absolutely nuts. I mean, I don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time on it, but we do have about 8 days. Maybe each of us have a conversation with Justin. I mean, he already has approval to buy buses, so he can move he doesn't need board action to do this. You know, he's.
I don't disagree with you, but there's going to be additional cost after we purchase these buses. Because we have the EV stations, we have to.
That's included in.
We
the
would,
EV station
we
is
would not
included in the
recognize
price.
the cost of the EV stations as a new cost that would be incorporated into the overall cost.
So the cost of the buses.
The buses and the EV
131,
station.
422 includes the $12,950 for the.
The total, once we receive the credits, the 30,000 per vehicle, all of the purchase price, any retrofits that need to happen to bring it up to our specs, and the charging stations will be covered, so we won't have any new costs
So
outside
it
of that.
won't exceed the cost that we've already implemented
No.
into the cell?
No.
So added the
The only thing
AC
that.
to the buses?
Once we add the AC, if you go, it's broken down in the email, you add the AC to the buses, that's the main expense. Then when you apply the credit,
And that was times 2?
yes,
That number
credit
you
is
gave
times
was 2, but the bus number you gave was 1. So that's why I thought it was double. So your 131, 422 plus 2 ACs, I had at 51, 187 total for 2. Which brings us minus the 29,000.
what I can do is, instead of sending it to you in that format, I can have them go ahead and put it on a spec sheet so that you can see all the details.
Yeah, and the quantities, and make sure that I calculated correctly. I would appreciate that.
Well, I'm sure Justin has calculated correctly. So,
Well, it wasn't that he didn't calculate correctly. It's some areas it was per 1, and then other areas it was per 2.
Yeah, the
but
charging
he's standing-
stations are
So
about
that's why I'm confused.
12,500
he's sitting there
each.
saying that it's not going to cost us any new money.
If you would like to make a motion, please do so.
I'm not going to make a motion. I think the three of us individually need to have a conversation with him within the next 8 days.
And that's what I asked him.
If we have a majority that feels like he needs to move forward, you give him a thumbs up. If you don't, we don't. I mean, it's
I'm not
really that
disa-
simple.
I agree with you.
Right, but I mean, I'm not going to tell
You stepped
him.
out of line and brought him up here when you could have added at the beginning of the agenda.
I certainly appreciate you standing up there and taking our questions. I have a feeling you'll be hearing from each of us individually. And, you know, Ms. Harrington is removed, so I don't know, you'll coordinate with Dr. Hornick on that particular conversation. If we have the majority, we'll move forward. You already know how I feel. Obviously, from my comments tonight, no new money out of pocket, and we get to test something and have the experience from it in order to move this school division forward in the future. That is the perk for me, and that's the creative thinking that we must have in Orange, because we don't have $400,000 laying around.
Well, and I will say that this would not be our first foray into alternative fuels. We do have some hybrids that we purchased. It was a similar opportunistic purchase. You know, there are certain times when you purchase a vehicle that if your fleet is composed of different things, there's some advantages to that as well. You know, I'm not sure how this is going to play out over time. I feel pretty confident that we'll get the years of service and the miles that we're expecting out of it. You know, when I talk to colleagues that have fleets of these, they're not seeing the constant breakdowns. They're seeing a pretty reliable, you know, the one thing that they really do from a driver experience, the one thing that the drivers will tell you is that they have no trouble hearing their students. They're able to communicate in a much more civil manner. You're not fighting to shout over an engine and air conditioning. It's just a very surreal experience when on board.
What's the lifespan like? Do we have an estimation for like until a battery needs to be replaced?
The battery is warranted for 8 years. The you know, what they're testing, I mean, I can only tell you what we're experiencing with the hybrid vehicles. We have 3. I've had one that has had a battery replacement. That car's 15 years old. I don't expect to see the battery to be at its full capacity much past 8 years. I think it'll probably do what most devices do. You'll probably get about 80% efficiency out of it after 8 years. But from an operations standpoint, we run a regular school bus on a regular route, usually about 8 years, and then we rotate it to a spare. It may be that when we see that this EV has reached a point where the battery is starting to degrade, we may decide to go ahead and trade it in early to try to capitalize on its value.
But it sounds like similar to what we've done with our diesels.
Absolutely. When we have the advantage of the computer tattling on itself when it's starting to wear out, whereas we may not see that without oil analysis and other metrics with the diesels. I will tell you, we do have some neighbors in the region that are looking to go full EV fleet. They're in, city environments, and that makes, and more power to them, But we're also seeing with the bus market, we may see an increase in demand for used vehicles as these emission standards take effect. The dealer was also explaining that they've seen an unbelievable demand for used buses because the prices of new buses, as we've obviously seen with ours, even what we've purchased new, sometimes, more rural school divisions with more budget constraints have a tremendous issue buying new buses. And I don't know what the emissions control changes will do to that, if it'll create more demand for used. There's just a lot of unknowns. That's why I'm fairly excited about the opportunity to try this with less risk. Short of a
That is
grant.
impressive, 80% after 8 years.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I would
nobody.
say that is, it's better than my phone. My phone, as soon as the day I pay it off, my phone battery goes
Battery's
down
gone.
50%.
Batteries in
Because
cars.
they want me to buy a new one.
A lot of it depends on how it's used, and you have to follow the procedures of charging them. There's a lot of things you have to do. People who have EV cars either love them or hate them. They'll drive them for a long time, or they'll ditch them if it doesn't work for them. But again, that's why I wouldn't attempt this without either having a grant that funded it completely or an opportunity where we have a minimal financial risk. So,
I do appreciate you coming up. Thank you.
Thank you.
no problem. Thank you.
Now get the notebook
Nope,
going.
I'm going to close my notebook. That's enough for tonight.
Hearing nothing else, I adjourn.
Thank you.